Hey, folks, welcome back to Momentum Monday. In this week's show, we're going to cover the moon, NVIDIA's week in the spotlight, the recent EV stock disaster, ARK's innovation failures, and then everything going on around sentiment and what's happening in the major indexes of the market. We'll then go over what the community thinks are the hardest sectors of the market right now, and then finally wrap up with stock picks for next week. My name is Tommy Trampo, and we're joined with the new market wizard, Aaron Jackson, otherwise known as the powerful ATM charts on the streams, and of course, our glorious leader, as always, Howard Lindzon. So, Aaron, we're going to start with you.
You just called me a glorious leader.
And you're a glorious leader.
And Aaron lives
wow,
on
you
Putin
should have heard
Lake.
what he was saying 5 minutes ago. My God.
He lives on Putin Lake near Muslim Alley in Michigan. And you got the glorious leader, Howard Lindzon, on. All right, well, this is a thrill.
So,
Aaron Jackson is I'm a big fan. He writes the rotation report. You knew that.
The best.
Okay, keep going. All right, let her rip, Tom.
All right. So I want to hit LUNR right off the bat, right? So if you've been living under a rock last week, we landed we made history on Thursday when Intuitive Machines, the ticker LUNR, landed a lunar probe on the moon. This was the first time a private company has ever landed, anything on the moon. And they brought with them, NASA payloads to, take pictures and pick up samples of moon rocks and all that other, good jazz that you do when you're on the moon. And as a result of this activity and actually having a successful launch, and all of this was live streamed, by the way, and it was a joint effort between NASA and SpaceX, all coming together to help these guys out to land something on the moon. And it was total euphoria for everybody who was holding shares that entire week. The stock was trading over the last 6 months in like a $2 to $4 range, and then exploded all the way to the upside, and getting close to, you see the chart in front of you. I mean, it went parabolic, that week. And then all of a sudden, on Friday, news came out that the landing was not as successful as they made it out to be. It appeared the lunar probe was actually tipped over on its side when it landed. And who knows whether or not that actually affects things, but it definitely sent the stock plummeting, and it lost like 40% of its market cap value over in the after hours on Friday when the news report came out that it was tipped over to the side. So anyway, all this to do, what do you guys think of space as an investable sector, and what do you think when you see price action like this around a company doing something like landing something on the moon?
You want me to go first? Might as well, huh?
Yeah,
well,
guess first.
I mean, I don't know what the hell you just said there. It landed on its side. It was like a disaster. We don't know what the hell to make of it, and neither does the market. That's why you saw the doji week last week, the indecision. Who the hell knows? I think, for me, you just watch the range of the week and play off of that. The bottom of the range is 8. The upside was like 13. You had sellers show up over 11.5. But what are you going to do? You want to play the space race? Buy some semi stocks, right? Electrical components.
Just on that note, it was funny. Japan recently landed something on the moon, and they were using NVIDIA chips as far as their, and so NVIDIA found its way back into the discussion here.
I think always and forever.
I think Aaron makes a good point. He's been writing about this a while. What's fantastic about stock tips and stories, this thing's been trending since it was in the 3s. I generally ignore this stock from the 5. We can hear you typing if you're typing. You should just go on mute, unless that was a space object coming into gear. But listen, kudos to the people that both front ran that but you can see, as generally happens in the world, people sell the news. So there was a lot baked into the thing actually landing. Side or no side, they're probably going to sell that news. Now the question is, what's next? But again, this all goes back to why semiconductors at all-time highs. Chips are doing way more than they did in the past, right? Which means you can have a self-launched type of, landing on the moon. No person landing on the moon. So it says more about the semiconductor industry than maybe us landing on space. But really, these are the fun stories. Broken SPAC, I guess this was
Something like that.
back in the
Yep.
day. And I think it just also just says something about risk on, right? Um, there's just, I call it the degenerate economy, and, like it, not like it, make fun of it, $3 to $10 move in the course of a couple of weeks says something more about the appetite for risk and the degenerates having fun. And now we'll see what happens. At some point a couple of years ago, the bankers thought this was worth $10 a share. Turns out if you do make a miracle and land an unmanned lunar piece of metal on the moon, your stock will be at $10, right where the bankers said it was. That's probably the more rare thing, is that a SPAC is trading at $10.
Yeah, that's a great point.
True that.
All right, so let's not beat around the bush anymore. I mean, we brought up NVIDIA and the semiconductor stuff, and obviously this week, it was NVIDIA's week. It was definitely the spotlight, throughout the last 5 days. So, what do you guys takeaways from this earnings? And did this change anything? Did this change your mind about anything? Reinforce anything? What do you take about from this week?
It's a wild move. Go for it, Howard.
All right. Well, I just, on my Sunday post, I wrote about it today. I have the luck of talking to some very smart people. I've mentioned Michael Parekh, who writes a free Substack blog, probably soon to be Beehive. I'm moving him over. But when you can read someone who ran Goldman's internet research for 20 years, and you see someone like that excited about AI the last year, and you have a chance to follow along for free and read how he's talked about this is playing out as exactly how he said. This is a chip. This is it. The compute price needs to come down, and as lucky humans so far, assuming machines don't take over the world, as lucky humans, the Magnificent Seven have enough capital. As much as we may not like the results, they have enough capital, despite 5% interest rates, to deploy tens, hundreds of billions of dollars to start this next bubble boom, right? Meaning, in a normal 5% world, pre-FANG, we wouldn't be getting this investment, right? Because no one would want to invest at a 5% interest rate in fabs, et cetera, et cetera. So a couple things I wrote about today. There's a Brad Gerstner new podcast. I think it's BG2. Everybody, it's on my blog, howardlindzon.com. As much as I'm not a tech podcast person, when you can listen to two pretty much, I hate to say the word geniuses, but two experts who love covering this stuff, dive deep into this AI super cycle, I'm not going to do it. You go listen. But they're super bullish. Not that there won't be dips, but, Brad Gerstner is a great crossover investor. Second, go listen to Jensen Huang for 5 minutes, and you'll get some incredible sound bites. This is a guy who is explaining his stock price by investments he made 10, 14 years ago and how chips would work. How should chips work? Chips should work for idiots like me and maybe Aaron. We know he's not an idiot, but, for the regular person that didn't go to Stanford and is not a computer scientist, if you really listen to Jensen Huang, no disrespect to saying his name, but if you really listen to some clips floating around the internet, and I aggregate them on my newsletter today, he is explaining how they design these chips to make it tech accessible for people like me that have domain experience. In the way NVIDIA thinks, a guy who started StockTwits 16 years ago and doesn't know how to code and build apps for Apple and Google and the web, finally can just kind of build products and hire less engineers to build the product that they need, right? And so imagine having all the benefits of technology margins, but applying business skills first and be able to build things, right? You've seen it with Figma, you've seen it now with the chips, and that's an exciting time, right? And it allows the people with true passions and the experts in industries to build tech scale businesses. And that's kind of the highest level of why these things are working. And they're working because the copycats can say, Sam Altman can go say, I'm going to raise $8 to $7 trillion. But if we put $7 trillion in his bank account to go take on NVIDIA, there'd still probably be, according to Bill Gurley, a 4% chance that would happen. So who's the dummy that's going to put $7 trillion in a bank account for him to go build the fabs, which TSMC has, and then to get around the patents that NVIDIA has and catch up? It's fantasy, okay? And that's why NVIDIA, AMD are running. Go ahead, Aaron.
Is it fantasy? Aren't they just going to? They're trying to sell it to the Middle East, right? The Saudis.
Okay. Yes, they're trying to sell the Saudis, but I think the government will probably intervene. And the Saudis have power, so don't get me wrong; they have power and money, like the power supplied to run this. So there is obviously Jensen Huang has spent a lot of time over there in Saudi Arabia. And by the way, Aaron's very funny in rotation report, so we'll see if it translates to video.
Yeah, we'll see. It's only my third video ever, so we're working on it.
I feel great to have you. You were going to be a regular, but honestly, everybody, rotation report, he has an ability, Aaron, to one of my favorite writers of the market, to sum up everything I just said in one paragraph. So you can listen to me for an hour or read one paragraph of Aaron. All right, next.
Yeah, you had a nice little soliloquy there. I was just going to say, yeah, it's all trending towards better software tools, right?
Yeah. It's an exciting time for guys like me and Tommy who've spent, I don't know, Tommy's 10 years for you, thinking through StockTwits and community and all the stuff that's in our brains that we do better than anybody else, but lack the ability to pull stuff off the shelf and really figure things out. And it's all coming our way. Now with the Reddit IPO too, a lot to learn. All right, Tommy, take it away.
So let me put you guys at some risk here. I'm going to put you on the spotlight. Like, is NVIDIA, I mean, we said all this really nice things about NVIDIA, and man, it sounds really bullish, but we're looking at this chart right now, and are you a buyer or seller at these levels?
Well, me and all my technician friends got freaking caught in this trap because that 730 was a huge Fibonacci extension level. Sorry, don't have the chart right now. And then the last week's high was 745. So you're watching that 730, 745 area. You got to be bullish above it. If it loses it, okay, change your mind. But for now, like you short it at your own risk.
Yeah. All right. No, I love that. All right. So moving on, like what?
I don't short stocks, Tommy. But again, go listen to Bill Gurley and Brad Gerstner. Brad has been long NVIDIA. Michael's been long NVIDIA. I don't think they think in terms of technicals. I think they just so you understand. They're current, and there was a great video 4 or 5 months ago when the stock was at 400 by
the Druckenmiller one.
Druckenmiller one, where he says, super cycles don't last 10 months. Yeah. So in a world of degenerates, everybody's front running the super cycle. That's hard to predict because that's what's going on. Meaning, smart people are listening to Druckenmiller, smart people are listening to technicians, and smart people are listening to Bill Gurley and Gerstner's podcast. And so new things are happening because the shorts are shorting on technicals, but the people who have super duper money piles are buying every dip because they think this could last for a couple of years. Yeah, that's how you create new technicals. Look the same, but it's just that small rates of acceleration and stuff that can change and can crush people that think they're a pattern. One pattern is the same pattern all the time.
True. So NVIDIA doesn't seem bearish is a takeaway that I'm getting from you guys. All right, so moving on.
Chart. No.
Yeah. I thought it was really interesting. So we asked a question to our community over the weekend, asking them, hey, what do you think the hottest sector of the market is? And you got a lot of the usual, what you'd expect, AI, robotics. A sector that nobody mentioned in 300 replies is EVs. What the heck has happened to EVs over the last 3 years? And does any of the earnings reports that came out last week, featuring RIVN specifically, I mean, are these stocks just in the dumpster for now? Like, what's happening to this sector that it's now so in the doghouse, if you will?
Hype is meeting reality. I think pretty much. We can look at RIVN, but they say yeah, go for it.
Well, look at that RIVN chart. Good product, if you have 90 grand and want something different than a Tesla, and like they said, good product doesn't mean good stock, right? Because the financials do matter. But the biggest thing that's the opposite of this chart is you pull up a chart of Toyota, and you have your answer, right? You have your answer. This is not about the automotive industry. This is about the fact that the kids, the youths, the degenerates, people like my son who like road trips and don't like gas, and just are comfortable with the price of EVs, are buying hybrids, right? And you don't get charts like that in an automotive industry, if it's all about autos, right? And it's not even all about gas. So obviously, the demand for hybrids is happening. I I'm not saying I get what kids do, um, you know, but this is a cultural thing. And until self-driving, I'm hearing that the last year has been unbelievable gain in self-driving, but that's still, we're not there. And in a world where you have to follow what the buyers are doing, the demand for hybrids is going up, and the valuations on Toyota compared to Tesla are extremely reasonable. So you have all that going on, and then the hedge funds probably doing a pair trade. And you've got the other stuff. You pull up a chart of Tesla. Let's just be honest. He spends at best 20% of his time on Tesla, and most of that is complaining on Twitter that he doesn't own enough shares. At some point when you're competing at this level, it's not easy when Elon Musk, best entrepreneur in the world, let's call it that, is spending just 20-30% of his time on Tesla, when Jensen Huang is spending 100% of his time on NVIDIA, right? So those are things that matter, and they're playing out here. With Rivian, I don't know, right? I've only been in one Rivian, but if you're going to touch that price chart in a world where things are going upward to the right, I don't think you are going to. You may be right long term, but it's going to be very hard for you to raise money because your investors will be fleeing, and that's just how the market works.
Now, I do have one little thesis I'm brewing here. Okay, so we see all this carnage in the EV, the green energy. What if we get a reverse Biden? Maybe we get a Trump victory. Who knows what's going to happen in the election? Somebody who's like, oh, we don't need to spend all this money on the green energy. Reverse Biden, it goes just like coal started to outperform EV. It just flips on the election. That might be something to keep an eye out for later this year.
Well, because you're saying Trump says people should have choice and have oil cars that get 10 miles a gallon.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I just don't think consumers will do that. I think hybrid is showing the leadership, even if he does do that. Go ahead.
There's another wrinkle in this Tesla conversation that I just want to throw in there, because I think it's been something over the weekend that some of our top guys have been talking about. Like, shout out to the Monkey Banana Geniuses and the Microns of the world, and they're huge Tesla fanatics, or just fans of the stock. And when they talk bullishly about Tesla, their entire thesis at this point comes from the fact that they believe that Tesla is going to be a leader in things like robotics and AI, and essentially nothing to do with the EV component of the business yet. Is that if you're looking to be optimistic about Tesla, would that be the thing that you would have to latch on to if you want to see the stock make that next move higher?
I mean, they've been talking about full self-driving for how many years? So sure, yeah. I mean, show me. Show me
the money. I think you're paid. Listen, the great investors can wait this out, but how many investors that have other people's money can wait this out is always the question, right? If it's your money, you can do things that other people can't do. When you're managing other people's money, it's different. And that's just, if you don't understand just that basic fact about how markets work, it's what gets you in trouble. You have to sometimes think about the other people that own the stock. We did a great interview with Chris Camillo, who's one of my favorite trend investors, and it's up on the site, but in Trends with Friends, and he said the exact same thing. The next 10 years is all about robots, but there's probably, and he said Tesla's the way to play it. But for me, I don't see an entry there. In the meantime, I'm not saying buy NVIDIA over Tesla. I'm just saying I'm not owning Tesla right here.
Right. And what they're doing with the factories, they said it's going to be like a year before all the robots and all that's implemented in the new manufacturing process. So it's still like when the profits start coming in, the margin gains from that start coming in is when you're going to want to mess with the stock, probably, most likely.
The lesson here is what's wrong with paying $300 in an uptrend? Look at NVIDIA. If you bought it at $300 and a super cycle starts happening, and you're fine. If a super cycle happening, just be on the lookout for Druckenmiller, be on the lookout for Brad Gerstner, be on the lookout for the people that understand changes of trend and super cycles. You'll have plenty of time if the robotic trend is being led by Tesla. And so that's my 2 cents.
All right, so we've been talking a lot about like this innovation stuff. We've been talking about managing other people's money. We just had a Tesla vein. One of the big stories this week has been the absolute disaster of everything happening with Cathie Wood and ARK, and everything. She failed to really take advantage of AI to any meaningful capacity. If she's a seller of NVIDIA, like what do you think of the Cathie Wood story? I mean, is it just over from here? Are we expecting a comeback? What are your guys' takes on everything happening to ARK recently?
Go for it, Howard.
Well, as a QQQ, as I've said here, I'm going to have Freck on one of these days, Freck.com, one of our companies. Direct index, okay. Warren Buffett has proved and said, and I'm even liking the old fart these days, because it's hard not to appreciate the quips, right? But as I've gotten older, Aaron, you're probably in your 30s, late 30s?
Mid-30s, yeah.
Yeah, mid-30s. God bless. And Tom is in his late 20s, right?
Yep, 28. Yep.
Okay. Once you get to my age and like your boobs start drooping and your prostate hurts, it hurts just to sit. The last thing you want to do is pick stocks. So eventually everybody that's listening will become an indexer for the most part. Why? Okay. Because there's so much capital in the market. And to think that you can beat the market, well, I just adore the idea of it, and I don't think it's not going away. I'm an indexer for the most part, okay? So it's insulting for anybody to think they can beat the market, and we're seeing it here with Cathie Wood, right? Especially around innovation, right? And the way she's managing her fund and the way she's on TV all the time. She just doesn't have enough of a grasp of technology. That's all I'm seeing here, right? Maybe portfolio management on top of that, she's not that good at. Maybe she's a YOLOer, got Tesla right, and now she's a YOLOer that's missed completely this chip run, okay? That's how hard it is to do this business, especially around tech and disruption, right? You combine not being right with tech with the plague of being a terrible, she's a YOLOer, right? She outperformed because she got Tesla right, and now she's underperforming because she owns a lot of Tesla, and she's missed a super cycle, right? She didn't just miss NVIDIA and semis from 100 to 300 off the bottom, okay? She missed the next double, right? And if you're competing in tech, you're out of business. That's the pressure. That's why you're competing against the best people in the world. The one thing about the markets people understand, it's not the three of us joking around and StockTwits joking around, the Reddit people joking around. It's the people I just mentioned that are truly managing billions of dollars and quarter to quarter being judged by their investors. They have to win, okay? And Cathie Wood's, it's a comedy show at this point. And it's a shame that people fall for this when they could just plain market cap index. That's my soliloquy.
Well, I mean, you make a great point. I've been a big fan of her. I've been trying to talk her up every time I get a chance on the rotation report because she needs a portfolio manager. I feel like that might be the best career move I could like fall into. Is portfolio manager that turns ARK around. I feel like that'd be really big for me, but I think Howard just nailed it. Like, what do you do? I mean, she sold NVIDIA, right? Like a long time ago now. So
Listen,
what you going to do?
I'm not that good at tech, but I was smart enough to go QQQ. Anybody who follows me the last 10 years, it was QQQ over SPY, right? And now I'm direct indexing over QQQ, right? Which means I'll take that extra 1 to 1.5% a year from tax loss selling. That's portfolio management, is taking free things and applying to your portfolio that mathematically work for tax reasons and other things. Okay. So this is just, listen, it's our money. We put it with these people. You want to blame Kathy Wood for your asset allocation? That's the other problem we see, Aaron and I and you, Tommy. We see it all day on StockTwits.
Well, I think this is a great example of something that a phrase you coined that I love, like filter failure. And Kathy has been on so much media hit. Like every time you turn on the TV, right, it's a segment about Kathy Wood and ARK and what she's thinking, and how many people just kind of fell victim to not being able to filter out kind of what she's saying as nonsense, and kind of looking to smarter minds within the communities to have them make better decisions. I think it's a pretty good example of that.
Yeah.
For sure. She had a rising stock. She rose up really quick too, and that's with the person, and things are so good. You don't need to change anything until you really need to change something. So, maybe one day she'll senses, hire me as portfolio manager, and we'll turn that thing around.
All right, Kathy, you heard it here first. Get Aaron a job as portfolio wizard.
Job.
All right, I'll hold you to it.
All right. So, I thought one of the interesting things happening this week, just kind of taking a little bit of a bigger picture look, is, if you're looking at paying attention to what's happening as far as sentiment on the streams is concerned, we saw SPY sentiment hit all-time lows over the course of this year, while at the same time, SPY is making new highs. So when we look at that, or when I look at that, that to me does not seem bearish. That definitely seems pretty bullish given the kind of trajectory of what we're asking. So, Aaron, what do you see just when you look at kind of the bigger picture, the macro look, and you look at charts like the SPY right now?
Well, when I see some of these stocks, these leading stocks that are so far stretched, and they've had all these awesome gains without me, I get a little negative too myself. I don't know about you, but yes, please pull back, please. I mean, look at this thing. Look at GE. I mean, there's so many stocks that look just like this. They're just straight line up, not letting you in, and for good reasons.
Well, the markets are fantastic for this type of discussion, right? Because we do, I do Momentum Monday for, 6 years with Ivan. Oh, and Ivan had a baby. God bless Ivan. What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think the name will be?
Microsoft.
And yeah.
I think potato. You take the potatoes out of the Bulgarian. So anyways, hope the baby's healthy. Can't wait to see Ivan with the baby. Just he's going to be so bearish for the next 20 years. Mentally, because Phil talks about this this is a crushing hard market. Guys like Aaron, myself, if you're not in the index, like I can rest at night knowing that QQQ has NVIDIA, right? I'm rooting for it, even though I wouldn't be smart enough to own it up here. But again, this is why I like to talk to people that actually have large money in the game and are experts. You listen to Brad and Druckenmiller and Bill Gurley, and you understand truly how far ahead NVIDIA is, right? And I'm not talking about GE here, obviously, but there's other stories with GE, obviously. People have given up for it in debt, and maybe it's, if we look underneath the surface, there is a reason it's going up, not just short sellers. So the people aren't in these stocks, right? You said the bearishness on StockTwits was high. JC, who I adore, right, who got the bull market right for the last 3 weeks, has been staring at divergences, as he should, because that's what top-down people do, right? And everything that got him in the market is making him very nervous here, right? So this is one of those combinations where the people that were right are also flipping right now, right? And don't get, people like to yell at technicians because they got a 2-week period wrong. But remember, technicians can flip and change their mind much easier than fundamentalists because they're not working on 100 pages of research that they've embedded into their brain and have to, get over that. JC could flip again. But you're just seeing breadth. I saw Hostile Charts, I think it was.
Yep.
Share that breadth.
The S&P made the most new highs of all the stocks, like last Thursday or something.
Okay, and then Urban Carmel, a good is someone who I really appreciate, who's not on StockTwits, but on Twitter, showed a chart that there's been declining breadth in the NASDAQ 100 for 13 years. Why? Because of the Magnificent Seven. So any one indicator, and lately that's been breadth, will bury you if that's the only indicator you use. You're getting buried by that indicator right now. So, successful investing, technical, or, stock picking or just investing requires you to understand more than just one variable. And right now, the wall of worry, which is what GE looks like, which is what coal stocks look like, which is what Toyota looks like. There's enough people worried in the world that stocks are working, right? And that's kind of the underlying true trend here, that people are looking for every excuse to get bearish, Tommy.
Sure. And let's just look through some of these groups. Oh, look at that. Dry bulk shipping. No one ever talks about that. Oh, new highs. US Steel. New all-time highs. Oh, not oil, not oil. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. Rails. Look at that.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So boring stocks, nobody wants to
That
talk
bubble
about.
happened in the 1840s.
Yeah.
If you look at rails, what makes me excited about rails and the internet and chips right now, because railroads were not designed by chips. Railroads were coal, engine, mechanical parts, steel, right? And you think about railroads 200 plus years later, all-time highs, right? And so it goes back to NVIDIA. We're talking about silicon. We're talking about fabs that are built. It's hard to think about not being bullish on 30% pullbacks on internet and semiconductors when you look at a fucking railroad and see, communication, shrinking of borders, shrinking of the world. So when you look at, these are the charts that I always go to in a bear market or in a bull market to see, just to check myself and go, fuck, if internets are working and I'm bearish on the internet, you got to be pretty much insane.
Pretty much. And to your point, you were saying about the breadth, like if you put an advanced decline line or any sort of breadth measure on the railroad index over the last 200 years or something,
Right.
Oh my God, that would be the worst divergence you've ever seen.
Good point. You're saying because there's only a few survive.
Because there's only like 5 left, yeah.
Yeah. Good point. So selection still matters. Like it's not easy, but railroads are probably the best proxy for the Magnificent Seven, right? There probably still will be a Magnificent Seven in the next 200 years, tech related. I just don't know which ones they will be.
All right. So any
That's the way the
closing
world is
thoughts on the big picture look, and we could jump into some more community same, because one of the things I want to pull up kind of hits on kind of this discussion right here. So any kind of concluding thoughts on the kind of macro look here?
Aaron,
Trend is your friend. Trend is up. Trend is your friend.
I'm with you there.
All right, Aaron, if you want to stop sharing your screen, I'll take over and we'll get into some of these. So we had a pinned question last night, really wanting to gauge the community's ideas on what they thought were the hottest sectors in the market. And as a testament to what you guys were saying a little bit, because one of the things we didn't really hit on this week, but it did happen on Friday and made a big hullabaloo over the weekend, is Berkshire Hathaway off to new highs. And kind of classically, one of the famous sectors that Warren's always been super bullish on is things like insurance companies and all these kind of things, like Geico of all things. So, like, what do you guys think so far of just Berkshire making new highs? And are these boring industries making new highs? Like, is that just incredibly bullish to you? And what do you feel about that kind of action in general?
Yes, stock go up, all-time highs, bullish.
It's pretty nice to have financials working. Listen, I'm not a fan of banks. The whole thing's rigged, just like railroads, right? Just like tech is somewhat rigged to the big guys. But you need banks. Listen, like I said, it's pretty nice that the world can move into its next super cycle with 5% interest rates. If we said that 5 years ago, the rates would be 5%, and Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, NVIDIA would be at all-time highs, no one would have said that would work. So to see the textbook kind of subtly changed is exciting, but it hasn't changed so much that when banks are working, you should be bearish, right? When money's flowing, CBOE all-time highs, Visa all-time highs, MasterCard all-time highs, Bitcoin all-time highs, Ethereum pretty much, 2-year highs, 3-year highs. So you have a lot of things that are at the center of transactions. Toyota all-time highs, Japan all-time highs. There's, LATAM looks interesting. Florida's working. But yeah, banks and Berkshire. I think Berkshire Warren came out and gave a lot of credit. It's a good lesson. I think the biggest lesson that young people should take away from this weekend with Warren Buffett is the credit he's given to the old dead guy. What's his name?
Yeah, Charlie Munger.
Okay. For young people, especially on StockTwits, okay, does not hurt you to shout out people that helped you get there. Okay. I see too much like in the tech world, in the VC world, in the founder world, me. Okay. If you were raised right, shout outs matter, right? Remembering how you got there matters. And so to see Warren kind of lead by example there and say, there's not enough shout outs out there. You see all this glory hunting and glory taking, especially in the financial space, me. I know you put your money at risk.
Oh yeah.
There's other people that got you there, and I think that's why StockTwits works. It's because the shout out is fun. It's not all you. So kudos to Warren on that. Kudos to Warren on also saying that he may just be too big to have outsized returns. That's a pretty honest statement when you have that much cash. Okay. Another reason why probably it's best ever right now to buy the markets. But Warren's statement is also a statement to the fact that why people want to beat the markets, because he has so much money. I don't think he can move, it's hard for him to put that money to work. And those are his words. So it is good to have banks leading, but it doesn't mean you have to trust the banks.
I just
Love
want
that.
to echo what you're saying. Two things I learned a little later than maybe I should have. One, kindness is not weakness. And two, you get what you give. So just think about it.
And we live in this era where you can just say hello online. That's giving, right? You don't have to just give money. But I see I really, as not a lifetime Warren fan, I do like the way he's living out the rest of his life here. Because I've hit that age. It's called generativity. I think the era of generativity, when you hit a certain age, when it's all about giving back and making other people smile. So the earlier you start on that, even if it's just fake and you're not, even if you're faking it, it'll go a long way. But there's nothing wrong with faking it, because being nice is good.
Especially on the internet, I feel like, in the environment where people aren't expecting it, and then you are super honest and welcoming, it gives it a little bit even more of a boost of feel goodness.
Yes, it's very surprising.
It's still flipperoo. Doesn't mean I won't tell someone to fuck off and
yeah, very much so.
Some people can't. Listen, I've been around long enough that some people just shouldn't be nice to, because they're not going to get nice, and it's quick to spot them. You can't save everybody,
So speaking of getting to that age, one of the assets, again, that has completely flown under the radar that I think is kind of interesting, I'm curious what you guys think about it at this point, is gold. I mean, is gold just completely out of the picture as far as your guys' investing, wheelhouse? What do you guys think of where that stands right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Pass on gold.
Here's why you have to pass on gold, and I've farted around with it over the years. In a world, we could argue about Bitcoin, and we could argue if there's 21 million, right? It's going to be an argument for the rest of time. But it is based on that one argument. No matter what you tell me about gold, I will never believe the supply, nor will anybody else in the world. So there's just, in a world of digital gold, right? You can make fun of it, but when you're pegging it to a certain supply, it has massive advantages over the real thing. I'm not saying gold doesn't have value. I'm just saying you can't expect the asset to track like it used to in a world where there truly are digital alternatives and a young generation. Take out India and gold, their love of gold and what it means to the Indian. But in the United States, no kid who learns the game of crypto and trading is going to buy gold, because the thesis breaks down when you try and figure out how much gold there is and which government holds it.
Right. And it's not like you can't say, well, maybe gold will go up. Maybe it will, but just on a relative basis versus so many other assets, boy, it's just lagging.
So there's a great quote.
Supply. How do you trust the supply?
In that same vein, so there's a great dialogue. Tom Lee, I was asked on CNBC this week about his opinions on Bitcoin, and he was asked by the Gus, like, aren't you concerned that Bitcoin is so heavily associated with criminal activity and crimes and the bad parts of the world? And Tom Lee replied, well, pirates were the first people to utilize gold as like one of the most valuable assets. And so, yeah, I think we're seeing the same kind of thing. Is that a narrative that you buy as far as the Bitcoin relation?
Sure.
I mean, when people settled the West, it's an old story, right? Wells Fargo's logo is still the stagecoach. What did the Indians and the bandits steal? Right? You had to carry your gold right there in your truck or your stagecoach, right? That's what gold feels like to me. It's like it has the same. If you store it, how is that different than Bitcoin? But if you store it, you don't know if South Africa or Argentina is going to discover 1 billion ounces more of gold. Who are you to trust what the real supply of gold is? But if you store Bitcoin for the same purpose, you pretty much know, right? And again, that's barring a catastrophe of us finding out if there's 80 million Bitcoin, all bets are off. But pretty good religion going on the story of the origins of Bitcoin from the white paper, and no one's been able to crack that 21 million. So I'm going to stick with Bitcoin over gold because of the demographics of the world.
Criminals are people too. All right, one more kind of question for the community we'll hit, and this kind of gets into there's so many. When we asked this question, what they thought the hottest sector was, about 50% of the responses had to do with robotics and AI. And of those responses, I thought this one was probably the most interesting as far as the applicability of a lot of this stuff, especially in the realm of agriculture and industrial, as far as being the biggest beneficiaries of this innovation. As far as robotics and AI is concerned, what sectors do you think are going to appreciate the most out of this, out of these technologies? And is this guy right? Do you think Wigglyik is on it with this agricultural and industrial look?
Probably. We're seeing, the robotics, the automation, it's been happening. It is happening. You got Deere talking about they're going to get Starlink hooked up so they can connect in Brazil, right? Brazil doesn't have, all the connectivity like we do. It's happening all over the world. You go to the oil services, the leading oil services companies, they're all using this stuff, right? So yeah, I think it's the right call. And I think you're seeing it in your relative strength in your industrials and your those type of companies.
Yeah, for me, it's just one of the other reasons I'm glad to index. I just don't know. You can't be an expert in everything. But yeah, to rise out of poverty, you need to, if you live in a swampland, you live in a swampland, right? It's hard. But combination of chemicals, seeds, this machinery, Starlink, there is a better chance of, coming out of national poverty if we can improve agriculture. But a little over my pay grade. So
I like how it just goes back to food production at the end of the day. It's like I think so much you forget how important the underlying are we making crops matters as far as our livelihood is concerned. So I appreciate that.
Well, you especially see it as tech works and people can't pull themselves out of poverty because the basic fact is they can't produce food.
Yep.
And clean water. It still comes back to food and clean water.
All right. So to wrap up, the show this week, what are your guys' biggest trade ideas or kind of specific stock picks that you're looking for heading into next week and the month ahead? Aaron, if you want to pull up the chart, whatever, I can then my end.
Let's do it. Hold up. Let's see. All right. So thanks for having me on, guys. It's an absolute honor to be here. And I'm thinking to myself, you said one trade for the week. And, you got to make it a good one, right? So we're going all in. Filecoin breaking out bottom. For if you're just on a 1 week time frame, you're looking at that next confluence area, 1130. I don't know what it is, but I've got a Wikipedia. Let's see. It says Filecoin is an open source public crypto and digital payment system, something blockchain, digital storage and data retrieval method. Okay, that sounds good. And then we have file system allowing users to rent unused hard drive space. We like hard drives. So yeah, all in. Filecoin going higher.
All in. You're joking.
I love that.
All in, but like
That's great.
It had a big week last week, so I have a lot of friends talking about it. So and periphery around the name. For me, I got to be honest. I think a better looking chart in that same space is Render. I don't know if you can pull it up, one of you. I talked about it for the last few weeks on Trends with Friends in the 5s. It's broken.
I don't have it.
Okay.
No,
right,
that's so bullish. I saw it was just up. They just added it to Coinbase like 10 days ago.
Oh, did they? Yeah.
And I still don't have it in my charting. So like, oh my God.
Yeah, I've owned it forever through some funds, multi-coin. I'll drop a link in. If you remind me, Tommy, I'll send you a link on an interview that Kyle Samani, who controversial, he's a portfolio manager in the crypto space, was early to Solana, which I was lucky to own, and have been early to Helium and Render. This has done the round trip from 5 to 1. It makes real sense. If you're thinking about text to video, you're thinking about generative AI, you're thinking about more movie production. This is GPU sharing, and that's a lot better than file sharing. So you can see why FileNet. No, I'm just saying, like, your story's right, but in a world of GPUs, this is a sexier blockchain story, and you can see it in the stock price action. Blue sky, right? Like, we're in blue sky territory of a shitcoin. So where could that go? That could go a lot higher. Yeah. So below 5, I don't know, bets are off. I've been covering it for a few weeks, but I mean, it's hard not to like that idea. And then back to another old one that I haven't talked about in a while, Axon, right? The taser business. Who wouldn't want to? I mean, if stocks was allowed one button, it would be a taser button. And this company isn't about tasers. I keep talking about it. Just about the cloud that they own.
Make it a premium feature where you can just like pause, like mute someone's account for 30 minutes. I'll pay for that.
We should have like that, Tommy, like the slapping thing. None of us would last for that. Right?
Yeah.
That face slapping thing? If we just had a weekly tase off, the worst idea got tased. That would change the tone of our stream. But anyways, just a company that, I don't know, no one ever, what's the followers? 10,000, it's probably one of the best stocks in the last 10, 15 years. Phoenix, Arizona company. But really the story isn't the taser. The story is the private cloud and the vests and the camera and their ability, like Amazon, to charge police, governments for the cloud services, right? Very few private clouds exist where you can continue to raise prices. So shout out to Axon. Not buying it here, I own it, but Render is one that I'm excited to check back in a year and see where that is.
Cool. Well, all right. Thank you guys so much.
Hold on. I get you. I got another one. You want something a little more classy, a little more respectable than a shitcoin? Okay. So I'm going to go.
I wasn't expecting a shitcoin from you.
That was awesome. Yeah, that was cool.
No, I got all sorts of ideas here. Okay. Bruker, you want to play tech progress. You want to play biotech. You want to, whatever in the space. We've got scientific instruments. I think it's space related to Bruker. Look at this thing. It broke above the tech bubble peak in 2020, just consolidating for a couple.
Followers. In the market cap, Tommy, could we pull that up?
Yeah.
By the way, you have to follow ATM charts. We're going to be working together more closely, but
it's only 500 followers on StockTwitch right now.
Let's go.
My favorite. So just remember how I like stuff. This fits in with what I'd have to check the market cap, Tommy, but
it's 11 bill.
11 bucks. Perfect. So you want to find companies $5, $5 bill. You want to find companies that have tremendously high price relative strength. The third thing that is a triple whammy, and you can use StockTwits specifically for this, is how many followers. Now, there's no relative number. 500 doesn't really mean anything, but it means something against, if you matched it up against 100 other high relative strength stocks, this will be the lowest. So you have three impetuses. You have the price relative strength, which is strong. You have it in a hot segment, and no one knows about the stock. Okay.
Not no one. I see Duzio, Anchors Away, and 50
Because they're
BPS
cheating
being the
off
only
my
people on the
ideas, 'cause
stream.
they're
They're
smart,
great.
because they're
Yeah,
cheating
That's
off
right,
ideas.
because they read the rotation report. That's
that's
right.
great.
But I don't know if you follow this, Aaron, but this building screens around. Again, this doesn't mean that StockTwits people aren't smart. It's the three bears, right? If you want to be, there's too hot, too loose, too tight, whatever that is. But right, Reddit is where you go, and they're going to be public, and it's going to be an exciting time on StockTwits. Reddit is where you go to look around the corner, but except 99% of the time, you're going to fall into a hole and die. Okay, but if you're right, you see around corners. Twitter is where you go for real time. StockTwits is where you go for the people just behind the real time people. You can call us dumb, you can call us smart, you can call us whatever you want. But we have enough data, right? Price and volume is available to everybody. It's a commodity. If you can pull up price and volume on 1,000 different charts, right? You can't do that with fundamentals, and that's why FinChat's really a cool company that we invested in, plug as always by me. But you don't even need it for this. But you could go run Brooker through FinChat AI and kind of get a run of the fundamentals to fill in your story. But here you got price and volume, which is commodity. Then you go pull up market cap and you go 5 billion. Okay, there's hedge funds in this. It's probably in an index somewhere, and there's mutual funds and institutions that own this. Third most important thing, with all that going on, no one cares to look at this, which is really fuel for the next rally. So assuming there's some earnings growth there, I love seeing companies above 5 billion with high price relative strength in sectors that are warm and in areas where there's only 500 followers. So do that, and especially in an uptrend, and you'll find more winners.
Love that. All right, guys. Aaron, where can the people find more of you? Where can the people connect with your stuff?
Rotation report. Just Google rotation report.
We'll throw a link in the comments below, and and make sure you follow him on StockTwits and Twitter and all the other stuff too. Great stuff. And Howie, he can be found on StockTwits at Howard Lindzon. You know where to reach him. All right, guys. Thank you so much for your time today. Any closing thoughts?
Thanks for having me.
Wrap up?
Nope, just thanks for having me. Congrats to Ivan, and hope everyone has a great week.
Thank you both, guys. Cheers.